Alright, this is the next thing I want to show you. What this is a prototype, and it's a traveling squareness comparator is what it is. So what I mean by traveling is, so your traditional squareness comparator with the shoe on the front, and this one's turned around, but normally it would be something like this, right? Okay, we would set this against our squares, our master square, like so, right? And I'm just going to do it crudely here. Oh, geez. Hey, you know what? Sometimes you get lucky. Look at that. Half that off. Anyway, you set this against your master square and you sweep and you find the high spot. Now, one weakness of this setup here is you're really only checking this spot in relation to this spot. Okay? So there can be a lot of business going on. Let's bring this around so you can see it a little bit better. Double check. Yeah. So, you know, there can be quite a bit of activity going on in here that you might want to know about, right? So this is sometimes not a, depending on what you're checking, sometimes not a fair test. It's not the true definition of perpendicularity, okay? True perpendicularity really includes the entire surface as far as GD&T is concerned, okay? So anyway, what this does is this has the ability to traverse up and down. And what we have here is this is a, some of you die makers out there are probably familiar with this. This is a Danley die pin. This is a guide pin for a very large die. And I bought this off eBay. And it was cheap. It was 25 bucks. Brand new, 2-inch diameter, heat treated. It's very straight. I checked it. And some of you that follow me on Instagram might have saw a picture of me checking this. And what I discovered was that it's actually pretty straight. Not as straight as I had hoped, but it's pretty darn good. So the biggest bump that I found in it, or the out of straightness, it's just a little over 1/10 for the full length of this thing, okay? Which is pretty good. Yeah, honestly, I was hoping for something like this, which is a Deltronics pin, which is more like 20 millionths, or actually better than that, actually, across the length of that. That's cylindrically lapped, so that's a little bit different. This is just ground. So the lap that I showed you in the early part of the video that we indexed with the little electronic level, that was for lapping this bushing here, okay? Now I don't want to take it off because it takes a minute to get it on, because there's just, as you can see, there's just no clearance, right? In fact, if I have too much lubricant on here, if there's a film of oil on it, it won't go on, okay? That's how close it is. Now the idea here, let me just kind of demonstrate the idea so you get a sense of it. It's not done yet, it's in progress. Robin and I were cracking each other up because we kind of both independently, you know, started working on something like this, and it was actually pretty funny. Now this isn't going to be the base. The base will be 3 inches high, and that's why I'm going to put this under here, just to kind of hold it up to that height, okay? And then what we would do, and it's not really going to have any adjustments, so what we would do is we just kind of bump it in, and then this has the ability to sweep, okay, which is kind of neat. So we can find the high pot, the high point, high pot. That's something that we do at work, is high pot. And I have a cheater adjustment right here, so, but I don't think the real one will have, actually it doesn't even really matter if I set it or not. But anyway, the idea is you sweep, okay, and you zero, but now I can come up here and I can sweep, and I can sweep anywhere I want. I'm just going to double check that viewfinder and make sure you can see all this. Yeah, okay, you can see all this. So basically I can traverse the surface like so and then sweep. Now so the side benefit of this, and what made me really start thinking about it, was the other disadvantage of this style here is the width of this. So sometimes you just can't get in there, okay? And I'll show you a good example. So we got this V-block here, this nice V-block. And what if let me just swing that out of the way there. And can you see that little sucker there? Yeah, you can see that little sucker. Push it back a little bit. So we try to use Mr. Wizard here. I can't even get in there, right? I can't even get it in there to do that. All right. So, and I've run into this where you have a feature that you can't check, right? So with this little guy though, yeah. All right. So I'm gonna have to fake it here. Let's do this. I'll just set it closer. I'll set it this way so you guys can see. Okay. And now I can come up in there. Okay. And all I'm doing is I'm sweeping a little bit, right? I'm too close. All right, well, I think you get the idea. So now I can, if the indicator nose fits in there, now I can sweep that, and then I can come up here and I can sweep that, okay? And I can kind of interrogate that whole surface, okay? Now, it doesn't work good. The whole idea is Kaputski, if the pin is not straight, okay, and you have lots of wiggle in this bushing, okay? And so I managed to get the bushing pretty good here. So when I wiggle this, it's less than 1/10 at that distance there, okay? So I'm wiggling this. Actually, yeah, all right. I'll bring you in closer and you can see I'll wiggle the bushing manually. All right, so that's a 1/10 indicator. So I'm wiggling the thing right now. Actually, let's do this. You know what? I'm gonna swing it around so you can kind of get onto it there. So I'm wiggling this bushing right now. Now, if I gronk on it, of course I can move it. What I don't want to do, I don't want to swing it at this point, right? I just want to tip it. So I got a pretty good fit between the bushing and the pin, is what I guess I'm trying to say. And that took a little bit of doing with the lap and stuff. Let's back up, and I'm going to show you another scenario with this thing. So let's take this thing off here temporarily. So there's another kind of a bushing that you can get, and so now I am going to take this off. Even getting it off, oh, there we go. Okay. Even getting it off can be kind of tricky there. Okay. So there's another type of bushing, and this is a preloaded ball bushing, right? And once again, all you die makers out there have probably seen these things. Well, that tube that I showed you in the beginning, that's this guy here. And what that does is that forms the outer race of this little assembly here. Now, right now, this isn't preloaded, but when we put this on, so now we have ball bearing. There's a recipe to this thing. So now we have, and this thing is smooth as silk. Okay. In fact, if I let go of this, it's just going to crash down. Now you can see that this travels at a particular rate here. Okay, and I think for this particular length, I would need a longer bushing. But what I can do is I can shorten this up here. This doesn't need to be nearly this long, and then I can get a little. I can stay on the bushing and stay preloaded. And what's cool about this is, it also rotates, but it just doesn't have the friction of the other. Now the other is nice because it feels damped and has that kind of greasy, slightly damped feel, right? That allows you to make real smooth movements. This thing is completely free, and because it's rolling friction instead of sliding friction. So. But if you have some range that you're checking, you can move the whole thing around. And you can pop that out, and you can kind of reset it. Okay. But this is careful there, Mr. Tom. This is all stuff this is like surplus junk that's available on eBay. Now this is a big monster one. If I was going to do it again, I would probably make this smaller, just to make these components smaller and lighter too. So, but I'll be building a base for this, and then we'll lap the base and get the base nice and square with the world, and we can check it by reversal. There's some things you can do to kind of qualify it that you're straight. But this is the traveling squareness comparator. I thought you guys would like a prelude to that, and then, you know, honestly, you don't even need an indicator bracket on there. You can just do that, right? You can just put your mag base on there, and Bob's your uncle, right? Okay. Okay, so you guys see me around here with these Optivisor, and these, you know, for those of you that are young and can see, you can fast forward through this section of the video. But for you elderly folks like myself that are having reading glasses and Optivisor challenges, here's an idea for you. And so, like I said, you see me with this. Well, I got a different one that I've been using, and I kind of like it. Now, I can't claim the idea as mine. This came from a guy that does guitar repairs, Stuart McDonald. And if you look him up on the web, he's just got some wonderful techniques that are applicable across all kinds of handwork. He repairs guitars and builds guitars, but he's got all kinds of very interesting glue applicators, clamping mechanisms, special files and scrapers and all kinds of really neat stuff. And then he shows how to use this equipment. That's Stuart McDonald, or StuMac on the web. And so he has a slightly different version, but I kind of took his idea. And what we have here is a standard Optivisor. But what I've done is I've added an extra layer of magnification. So these things have a particular focal length, right? And I don't know which one this is. This is a 3, which is probably something like 10 inches. And then I've added another one that I can fold down and bring it in really close like this for the real fine details that come up, and not have to go get a different one. So I have about 3 of these around the shop of different magnifications. So now this one covers at least 2 of them, and then this thing just kind of flips up out of the way. So now this is a little bit heavy here. I think what he did was he made a little bracket that just mounted a second one at a different level with a different magnification. And then I started playing around with it, and I said, oh, well, you could just fold it out of the way too. So his bracket's probably a little lighter than this, but this is still less than a welding hood. So, you know, my big old fat neck doesn't really care. So anyway, there's an idea for you for the visually challenged folks out there like myself. And here's a neat old book that I found. It's an old Doall catalog, Doall Master Catalog, and Doall has gone through, I don't know, quite a bit of change since this book was put out. They still make vertical bandsaws and sawing equipment, stuff like that, but they used to be kind of equivalent to Brown and Sharp and Starrett and those, and they made a lot of different instruments and gauges and tooling and all kinds of stuff. And this was this catalog dates from 1987, and this was, you know, maybe one of the close to the heyday, probably, I would say. So I flagged a couple of things that are of interest here that we'll take a look at here. So let's pop to the first page here. And what we have here is we have optical flats, and that's a monochromatic light there. And the optical flat that we were using to check our little thing that we lapped here is a little square one here. And actually, I don't know if I've showed this in the past, but this is so cool. I bought this off eBay a couple of years ago, and this is what sold me on this thing. It's the Apollo Support Division, and it's got this little rocket here, right? And there's a little flash of red in it. And it was some division of General Electric, right? This was QC or whatever. But I just love this logo. And so none of you guys out there steal that, because I want to put that on a t-shirt. And Apollo Support Division, right? And just walk around with that and just, you know, see what kind of questions come up. And then that's the That's the optical flat. And this is a dual surface because it's got the double arrow on it there. And if we look up in our master catalog here, there it is right there. And in 1987, it was $145, which was it's pretty expensive. Not super expensive, but pretty expensive. Let's just pop to the next thing here. Oh, okay, check this out. This would be very cool. It's a workbench, but it's got a granite top. So it's a surface plate that has drawers and a vise, so you can do, you know, precision assembly, inspection, whatever, and they're calling it a tool maker's bench. And I'm like, I've never seen one. I would love to see one. That's pretty awesome. And, you know, Standards Granite, I'm sure would be happy to make me one. So it might not be as expensive as you think. So just imagine some Lista cabinets and a perfectly sized granite top that goes on the Lista cabinets with threaded inserts to attach it all together, man. Boy, that'd be pretty tasty. Anyway, I'm dreaming. Okay, so moving on. Let's, okay, now, I don't know, it's been a while, but I showed a Granite Sign Bar that I picked up at an auction, and it's really long. It's like 20 inches long. It's massive. But I commented, and I didn't know why, that the distance between the rolls was, I don't know, I think I said 20 and 5/8 or something. It was kind of an oddball number, right? And I was like, well, maybe, you know, they just give you a certificate of calibration with it that tell you the roll centers, and then you just do the math from there, right? Well, it turns out that that is not the case, okay? That distance is very specifically set here, and if you read this here, let me just flip it just so I make sure I don't screw it up here. Yeah, okay. So the distance between those rolls is set up so that as you change the height under one of the rolls by a 10,000th of an inch, that corresponds to a change of 1 arc second of angle, okay? So they've set the roll distance up at 20.62664, okay? Pretty close to 620 and 5/8. So if you change the height of one of the rolls by a 10,000th of an inch, then that's 1 arc second of angle change. So it's kind of neat, actually. Now I'm like, I'm kind of stoked that I saw that, and now it kind of closes the loop on that, and it's always nice to close the loop on that kind of information. And then here's another little oddity, a granite lapping plate, which probably is not a great lapping plate normally, but they're saying they're using it for lapping plastics, which is kind of interesting. So never seen one of those. I don't know how they would charge or how they would hold the diamond. So I'm not quite sure how that all works there. And then this is a dressing plate. This is for stoning gauge blocks and things like that. And when they get teeny little scratches and nicks in them, you can kind of work them out. Okay. And then what's this last thing I got here? I don't want to stay on here forever. Oh, and I think this is just me checking this here. So this is a machinist and apprentice tool chest, and it's got a tool list. Look at that. How do you like that? So I'm going to sit there for a second. You guys can pause the video and take a look at that tool list if you want. And $1,650. Oh, that's the master. Okay, wait a sec. 46P. This must be the apprentice up here. So, yeah, and that's only $495. Much cheaper. So we're over on the my new surface grinder here. This is this Brown & Sharp Micromaster. Honestly, I can't even remember if I showed this showed this on video. I've had it for a couple of months, and I've been doing some work on it, cleaning it up and kind of getting it ready to grind. But one of the things that I wanted to add to it was a traverse brake, right? So this is a fully automatic surface grinder. So it has hydraulic feed, and then it has feed dogs that you can set the stroke with, okay? But it does, oops, and this isn't mounted yet, so just forgive me for a minute, okay? But it doesn't have a table lock, so you can't lock the position of the table, which is actually really handy to do. For example, when you're doing cylindrical grinding, you can bring the rig out and take a measurement, and then come back into the same spot and stop and have a really good, nice stop, and then lock it so that it can't drift or move. Now, generally, that's not conducive with auto feed, right? Because if you lock it, then you engage the auto feed, you know, all hell breaks loose and it's no good. But I think, you know, if it's your own machine and you're careful that you don't leave this locked or whatever, then you'll probably be fine. So anyway, this is the start of that. So it's kind of a blade lock system, and I had an extra 24-inch scale here that I use, and I said, oh, why don't I use that, because it's made out of spring steel, right? And the idea is that when this thing clamps it, it can deflect that a little bit, and but it's rigid in this direction. And if I need to add more screws, I'll add more screws. This will be mounted to the machine, so this is the structure, this is the actual thing that's being clamped here, and then this is the clamp. So that's released, that's engaged, and it has basically a spring energized clamp. So when I tighten it up, it closes, and when I open it, the springs physically open it up so that you know, kind of like a disc brake caliper, right? So, and then on top of this, there'll be a hard stop mounted to this that has a micrometer, or excuse me, there'll be basically a post here, and then there'll be a sliding adjustable stop that has a micrometer on it, so that you can come back to the exact same spot within small limits, and then make small adjustments. So haven't started on that yet. That's one thing I was working on this, and then we're going to go up this way, up, and look at the little coolant nozzle for a flood coolant that I made for this. So, all right, so here's the coolant nozzle, and this is modeled after a discussion I had with Robin Renzetti about flood coolant nozzles, and I really liked his. He's got this multi-bore tube thing that he did, similar to this, although he did it a little bit differently than I did, and his arm is significantly different. But he actually sent me some pieces of tubing here, which I Siamese together here. These are soldered together. And then soldered into this brass block here, okay? And now this allows you to bring it up and get it right at that wheel work interface where you want that coolant to go. And then this is just an easy adjustment. And then here's my my on-off valve here, so that I can throttle the amount of coolant that comes out of there and shut it off. And then there's a whole design for a coolant filtration and recovery system that pumps it up to this part. But I figured I'd work on this end first, since I was working in this area, and kind of get this. So I've been a lot of cleaning, and I replaced the belts. You know, it's all kind of boring stuff for video, and actually kind of hard stuff to show on video. But and honestly, you know, some of these things I just felt like working on, and maybe not filming them, and just kind of working my way through them and listen to music and just kind of get it done. But you guys get to see the results, and you get to see it in use. So, okay, so we got a couple more things to take a look at here. So which one should we do first? Got a Wahlstrom drill truck. We've got a Swiss Precision Val Cut Trepanning tool, and then we have a Hjorth spring winder. So, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a bozo by the toe. If he squeals and screws up, that's the end of him today. Okay, so we'll do this one. These are Val Cut Trepanning tools. There's two types here. And this is the one we're going to be talking about today here. I'll show you this one as well. These are marketed through SPI, Swiss Precision Instruments, and some resellers, MSC and Pen Tool and a few others actually sell them. It's an interesting tool because it uses kind of a unique tool geometry that you don't see. It's actually kind of a nutty looking geometry here, but it actually works really excellent. The idea is that they call it this drag cut principle here, that the cutting edge is behind center line, so when it bites, it tends to relieve pressure as opposed to digging in harder, which is kind of the primary thing. And the way this is ground and relieved is fairly unique, and actually, honestly, I would love to see the equipment that does that relief, because it's kind of interesting. So this is a lathe tool here, and what we got in here, it's a little set. Let me scoot this out of the way a little bit. It's a little set that fits in a drill chuck or in the mill, and then holds the tool. Let's see if I can, if I don't have, okay, I don't have it tightened up too much. It holds the tool at a different radius, so you can cut out, you can either cut a hole or you can cut a clean disc, depending on which tool geometry you use. Okay, so it's got it ground one way for a hole and the other way for a disc. So now they don't give these things away, so folks that have them out there or have been looking at them or whatever know they're fairly expensive. I got this one on eBay, and it was damaged, and I kind of fixed it a little bit, and it seems to work fine now. In fact, let's see if we can see the. So this end got chowdered here. It must have snagged or something happened and it broke out, but it seems to work fine. So anyway, that's the SPI or Val Cut, I should say. And there it says Val Cut. Okay, we're gonna go try this on the lathe and see how it performs. I got a steel disc set up over there, and we'll check it out. So now I guess I have a bit of a complaint too. SPI is kind of needs to up their game a little bit. Their website hasn't been updated since 2009, and most of the links are broken, so there's very little information on these as far as technical information. So you have to kind of mine the internet to find this stuff. And this is there's virtually no technical info. And then an example would be now they got some feeds and speeds here, which is nice, but there's no minimum and maximum radius. What's the smallest diameter this can cut, what's the largest diameter, etc., things like that. So when I tried calling their technical line and got no answer from them and left a message, so SPI, these guys here, in my opinion right now, you suck until you prove otherwise. So, but this is a wonderful tool. It's not made by SPI, it's made by somebody else. So these guys are the main marketing folks for these things. So let's go try this on the lathe. All right, we got the tool in here. So they call out, they ask for 5 millimeters below center line, okay? So let's just double check that and make sure that we're where we are supposed to be. And okay, that looks pretty good. Sorry, I'm at 140 millimeters, which is about 5 millimeters below center line. Okay, now that's considerably below center line, so but that's where they asked for it, so we'll set it up that way. And then let's look at what we're going to cut. All right, so what we got here is a steel disc, and it's about 10 millimeters thick, 3/8 of an inch. Okay, and we're gonna lop a hole in there. So what I'm gonna do is calibrate this on the outer edge. All right, I know what the diameter is. It's 3 7/16. So let's sneak up on that edge there. All right, so 3.438. All right, and then now I know what that outer edge is, where that outer edge is. Now I want to be inside inside my stoppers here. So I don't know, let's do 2.3. Let's just do 2.3. Let's try that. Okay. It looks okay from here. Get the lathe set. And we're running at 160 RPM. Okay. And then I'm just going to hand brush oil on this. Let's give it a go here. Feels pretty good. And you guys already know that I've already tried this, so but I just want to do a decent demo here. Let's maybe we'll try power feeding it, but let's keep going here. Yeah, it's smooth as silk, no chatter. Let's see what kind of feed rate we got going here. Alright, I'm going to try power feeding it. Let's see how that goes. And then I'll still... Okay, this power feed. Oop. Okay. Where'd my brush go? Alright, I can't reach it. I got more of those. So I guess a chip grabbed my brush, so let's try that again. Oh, there we go. So one disadvantage is you get a continuous chip, which is not that nice. So I think I'm going to hand feed it, because then I can back off pressure and let the chip break and not misbehave on me. I can get it out of my way. The fun part is always right when you break through, you know, how does the thing behave, right? With any trepanning operation. I hope I'm not blocking the camera there. Okay. Well, it's mild steel too, so it's you know, its chip formation's a little. Okay, so we're getting ready to break through. Pay attention. There it goes. All right. Pretty happy. So let me get in there and retrieve that. Now it's got the death dealing edge on it right there now. It's probably hot too, yeah. So there's the edge that's left, and you can see the finish. Now once again, this is mild steel, so it's not a super happy finish in there. But anyway, it works real good. It's nice and smooth. Val Cut Trepanning Tool. And I don't know what the minimum diameter is for cutting diameter is this, but it's a little bit smaller than that. So I know there's a bunch of people out there going, "Oh, I want to see the mill tool." So why not? While we're playing with these things and talking about them, let's go ahead and try it. Should we try an interrupted cut? What do you think? I haven't tried an interrupted cut, so let's go for it. Let's try an interrupted cut and see how it behaves. And just kind of eyeball centric. There it is. That's pretty close. Okay, so put it in neutral. So we got a clampy thing. So what we're going to do is put the tool in, okay, and then we adjust the radius, outside radius of this, and it's got a kind of a neat little scale here, and it's got a little love notch on there, and oops, and this is one of the things that was damaged on this particular unit when I got it. Let me see if I can get that jammed in there. Okay, so I just put a drill bit in the kit, and then it just helps me set the radius here. So what am I looking at here? All right, so should we do a 2-inch hole or 2? Yeah, let's do 2. Let's do 2. Okay, so theoretically that's 2, right? All right, and then let's get this handy dandy freakazoid wrench here. Let's see if I can snug that up. All right. And you know, this is actually kind of a simple tool design, with the exception of grinding this weird geometry on here. So you could, let's see, do I have enough? I can't get my scale in there. I don't know if I have enough depth here below that to do it. Let's just see if I can make it through there. Shoot. Well, you know what? That's not gonna it's not gonna make it through. But so I won't be able to cut the whole hole here. Let's just do what we can do. Let's make it a fair, evil test here, and we'll do a nice interrupted nightmare cut like that. I'm just gonna put it in slow mode here. So I just want to figure out where I am here in the world. I think I'm just gonna hand feed it here and see how it goes. A little WD-40 love. It doesn't seem to care too much about the interrupted cut. One nice thing is you get some chip breaking. Alright, that's it. I bottomed out. On that. Get a look at that again. There's that kooky geometry right there. Now, if you busted your knuckles against that, you'd be hating life. But anyway, this is a Valcut Trepanning tool, and this is adjustable radius here. So technically, you could use that in the lathe as well. So instead of in a lathe tool holder, so that would still work. All right, this is this belongs to a friend of mine, Carla, and she asked me to take a look at it and thought it would be a an interesting video subject, and I agree with her. The story is she bought this on eBay, and she thinks, or she told me, she said, yeah, I got snookered on the deal because the thing was jammed when I got it. It was supposed to be new or whatever. Anyway, she didn't bother fighting with the seller about it or whatever. So she asked me, said, well, maybe you show this on video and take it apart and see what's going on with it and see if it's fixable. So I said, yeah, sure, that sounds like a fun one, because I've never played with one of these before. So this is kind of an interesting chuck. Let's get a look at it. The box doesn't mean diddly, but so what we got here is it's basically kind of kind of like an all-brick chuck, it's a keyless chuck. But what's interesting about this one is you can change the tool with the spindle still running. That's its claim to fame. That's why they call it an automatic, fully automatic chuck. Now this is a little, I don't know, minorly twitchy and sketchy when you're swapping tools, but with care you can do it reasonably well. So what I thought we'd do is we'd just take it apart and get a look at the guts, and then kind of do a test drive on the mill and see how it behaves. So what do you say? Let's get to it here. It's got a little snap ring in here. And I'm, full disclosure, guys, I took it apart already, and just to kind of get a sense of the thing. So there it goes. It's got, there we go. Spring. It's got a bunch of guts in it. Okay. All right. I think that's as far as I'm going to go on this here. Let's put it this way, that's as far as necessary here, so we can look at some of the bits here. All right. And then hopefully you can see down in there, there's the chuck jaws here. And when you press down on that little plunger there, that pushes the chuck jaws together. So the interesting part is it's got a little clutch mechanism in it, with kind of two steps that are staggered from one another that engage this kind of planetary arrangement here. And then ultimately this planetary arrangement engages with these guys here to spin the chuck back and forth. And then it's got a spring to kind of help things along there. Let's see, I don't think, yeah, I don't think, you know what, that comes off, there we go. I forgot about that. Oh, this one's actually keyed on, I forgot now. There's a little key right there. Some spudge in there, so anyway, and there's one of the clutch members there, okay? So I'm gonna pop it back together, and then we'll go over to the mill, and then we'll give it a try. So I didn't find anything particularly wrong in here. It had a bunch of dried grease, which I cleaned out, and then put some fresher stuff in there. And like I said, I didn't find anything that was jacked up. Now there is kind of a timing. You got to get it together in the right direction, or else the timing is off a little bit. And what I mean by that is the timing between the screw and the jaws. There's a little issue with that. So let me put it back together, and we'll go from there. I got greasy hands now too. All right, we're set up in the mill here, and then I'm going to show you what might be considered a typical operation for something like this. So we got a spotting drill, a drill, and then a countersink, right? So the way this thing works, we'll just give you a quick demo here. That's opening it, and then that closes it. So this is opening with the knurled ring, and then when you close it, you push on that nose. Okay, and this will close down to a little less than a millimeter, so like 30 thou. All right, so here's the tricky part. All right, boop, 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 do your business. Take this out. Drill. Right? So you got to touch the rotating tool, so you got to be a little bit careful, or you got to be mindful, I should say, and what you're doing and where you're holding the tool, right? So anyway, that's kind of the idea there, and it's got low run out. It seems to behave itself pretty well. It just doesn't sound that great to me. It sounds like something's not quite right in there, and I could see how you could get that that impression that maybe there's something wrong with it. Maybe, maybe that's what happened. So Carla, if you're watching this, I either fixed it, which I kind of don't think I did, but I certainly opened it up and put some bozo magic on it, and it seems to have magically healed itself. So anyway, Wahlstrom fully automatic chuck, pretty cool. All right, this next one's pretty cool. This is a Hjorth Lathe Tool company, and it's a spring winding tool. So it's a manual spring winding tool. So Hjorth, Hjorth Lathe and Tool Company. Now what we got here is, it's kind of interesting. It took me a little bit to figure it out. So it has a couple of a moving wheel on it here, and you can see that this thickness varies a little bit here, right? So there's the thinnest one, and then there's the thickest one, and then it's just kind of incremented. Now what that does is that sets the helix angle, okay? So that sets the space between coils. So when we're winding a spring, there's a space between coils, right? Some springs are wound with them all the way together, right? But in this case, this is a helix that has a space between them, kind of like a thread, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to try it at the two extremes of helix angle there, and you can see actually, let me just take this off here. You can see the whole shoot and match here. It's got this cool star knob on it, okay? And then it's got this little guy here. And what this is it's a little friction brake that puts a little bit of pretension on the wire, okay? So there it is. There's the innards of the thing, okay? And it's got an index pin to lock in the particular helix that you want, but we're gonna set it there. And you see it's got a hole going through here, so we feed the wire through. You'll see that in just a sec too. Let me put this back together, okay? So I'll get set up here, and then we're gonna attempt to wind some springs. What could possibly go wrong? All right, so I got some, this is this welding rod here, 332 welding rod. So we're going to poke it through like that. And then we're going to line those two up with one another. And then I'm going to put a little bit of English on this, a little pretension there. At least I think I am. I don't want too much sticking through there because see, I got my mandrel. This is my winding mandrel here. I'm gonna poke the end of the wire through there to kind of lock it. So I don't want too much poking through. So let's do that. Am I ballsy enough to do that? Yeah, okay, that feels pretty good. So it's pretty stiff. And then what I'm gonna do is kind of get it started like so. Okay, and then, if I'm really gutsy, I'm going to put the lathe in gear. All right, you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I'm just going to let it pop out of the end like that. All right, so did we pop out? Let me just pull that bit out of there, like so. All right, so it looks pretty good. So that's a spring. And I suppose you could just keep going if you had lots of wire. And then the other thing, to get it to wrap tighter to the mandrel, you put a little more initial tension on it so that it tensions the wire a little bit more. So let's do one at the maximum. See, what was that? What the heck was, I thought that was the maximum. Hey, what's going on here? I must have done something wrong. You know what? I think I screwed that up. Let's try that again. I think I was riding on top, and that's why I have a variation in the helix there. I can see a little variation. Let's call that a bozo practice one, and we'll go again. All right, I think I'm ready again here. Good thing I got plenty of welding wire here. All right, so far so good. Do I need to? All right, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it again. So I think I got it. It's that first coil. There we go. So I hopped it over. There we go. That's more better. And got it in between. Okay. I think that was better. So that first coil is a little bit tricky. You gotta get up in there. It's not the most foolproof tool, or at least I'm not very good at it. So let's see here. Pull that out. All right. Well, the helix looks better to me. All right. Let's try one more, and we'll try it on the finer pitch again. Okay. I think I'm ready with the fine pitch now. You can see I've got the narrowest helix thing going. So let's try that. Let me kind of get that initial bite there. All right. Are we ready? Are we ready? Come on, Mav, do some of that pilot stuff. All right. Oop. Apparently I wasn't ready. All right. Do they go forward or backwards there? All right. I'm gonna crank some more tension in there. All right. There we go. Hey, I got that one right out of the gate. So apparently this takes a little bit of practice. It's not the most user-friendly tool, but it does work. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it behaves better with bigger wire or something, you know, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Now, one of you guys out there in internet land is probably going to find the, like, owner's manual for this thing. But, all right, so there's fine pitch, there's coarse pitch, the Hjorth lathe spring winding tool. Pretty cool, huh?